So it's now the 1-year anniversary of me starting the giant rubber band ball from an exploding watermelon. And ever since then, you guys have kept wanting me to add bands, so I have, all the way to now, which is part 52. I also bought a new scale to weigh the ball and a watermelon to crush at the end of this video with the rubber band ball. The ball currently weighs around 300 pounds, and this is like 25 pounds more of rubber bands we're adding. And the camera did keep cutting out at times due to the heat, but we kept on placing bands until the entire pile was gone. And we tried to weigh it, and we couldn't quite tell, but we think it was like 320, and we tried to pick it up, but we couldn't, so we had to roll it onto the watermelon and completely crushed it. But it was pretty good. Like if you want me to keep on adding bands. So one day I visited Soup Timmy, a Rubik's Cube artist, because a little while back he inspired me to make my own Rubik's Cube art, and I ended up making Shrek. But Timmy's like a Rubik's Cube pro, and he can solve a Rubik's Cube in under 10 seconds. I scrambled one for him, and it's almost as if he slows down time, because he got it done in literally 7.6 seconds. Then he showed me he can even solve one with one hand in 30 seconds while playing with a ping pong ball. He even has the fastest time while solving a cube hula hoop. I then had him mix up a cube for me, and then I beat his record, and finished off his giant art wall. Guess I'm just a pro. No, but for real, this stuff is insane. He even showed me a magic trick where he instantly solved the cube, then showed me this giant cube and a fidget spinner. One day I ordered a bunch of giant Legos to build a brick wall and run into it. So we built the brick wall, and then I got on the scooter and ran into it and completely nailed my nose and made it bleed a little bit. Yeah, it really hurt. So then we put it back together and took the rubber band ball to it. And after that, I ordered even more Legos because I was like, I need to make the wall even bigger. And then I tried to jump over it, which was kind of a fail. So let me know what else I should do or if I should buy more. So one day I got another super strong magnet to go magnet fishing with. First I wanted to test it, picking up this chair first, then this helium tank, and it did a pretty good job, so I was ready to go fishing after I threw this frisbee thing. I first took it out to this pond to test it and threw it out, pulled in, and for a while I was getting a lot of nothing. And after a long while, eventually on a really big throw, I hooked something and pulled up this thing. Kind of bizarre. Then I dropped it and accidentally pushed it out further with my magnet, but I got it. And then the next day we went to a different pond to test. I dragged the magnet along and pulled up this. Yeah. And then I threw it back and pulled up whatever this is. It was like a coin and a really black piece of metal. And after that I felt something really hook on, but I couldn't get it. So one day, someone on my Instagram gave me the idea to build a trampoline out of my giant rubber bands that I used for my giant rubber band ball. And my first attempt was pretty bad. I couldn't figure out the tightness it needed, but eventually I got it, and then I took a big strand and wrapped them all the way around this thing like this. But it wasn't tight enough, so I made this X thing, and it was even more bouncy, and it was time to test it out. I made a cool hammock, I could step over it and throw shovels on it. And this tire, and this rubber band ball, just kidding. I tried to surf on it, and then went to Walmart to get a watermelon, some soda, and some plates to throw on it. And the watermelon ended up being too heavy to bounce on it, so I moved on to the root beer, and it wouldn't explode, so I took it outside to do it. It launched pretty decently, and then I threw the plate, and it didn't break at first, but the second throw it shattered. So I threw it again, broke some bands, and then I just kind of went ham on some stuff. So one day I got a bunch of helium to fill up this giant 6-foot water balloon and an air mattress. I filled up the balloon until I was out of helium, and then I let it go and grabbed it. Then I tried to see what it could lift, and not really anything. Then I punched it and kicked it and slammed it on the pool, which made it fly away. Like this. And the balloon just kept going off into the distance, and the next day it was time to try an air mattress. I filled it all the way up and it didn't do anything. So I put it in the pool, threw the shovel on it and hit it, and then sucked some helium up, and then so did my cameraman.
Part 61.
So one day I ordered this giant bubble dome thing because I saw it on the internet and thought it looked cool and had to buy it. I got it all the way aired up, and it was pretty cool looking. I opened it up, went inside, and it kind of felt like one big quarantine chamber. I was completely separated from the outside world. Here it is inside, and then I got bored and decided to put my giant rubber band ball in it. I put that in a beanbag and then chilled. So comment any cool ideas you have for this thing and I'll do them. So I'm now to rubber band ball part 61, and the ball is over 500 pounds, but I guess everyone wants me to keep on going. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. My friend Brendan and I, we placed bands for a while, then left and came back the next day to place again, and this happened. A band broke and made him launch backwards. So I had to help him back up, and then we got back to placing. And I think this is Brendan's last time placing the rubber bands on the ball. But after way too long, we were done, and the ball is huge, and the bands are way too tight. Just look at me standing on it and then trying to bounce stuff on it. And I finally rolled it back on the scale and weighed it in at 541 pounds. So, like, if you want me to keep on going. So one day someone commented on my video with this giant dome thing and told me to put ball pit balls in it, so I put the whole ball pit in it. And it took a pretty long time having to air it up and move all the balls in, and then I had to move them from this thing to this thing until eventually they were all in the one big circle. And it looked really cool. I fell in it, then looked around, and then ran around, and then fell again, threw some balls at the camera, tried to run, and it wasn't that deep because it was so big, but let me know what else I should do with this thing. So one day someone commented telling me to fill this dome thing up with water, so I was going to do it. My plan was to fill this section up first and then get in the other section, zip it up, and let it fill all the way until I was releasing it. But it started to leak through, which was ruining my plan. So I had to release early and let all the water out, and this is what it looked like. All the water did kind of rush in, and it made this cool little pool in the dome. It wasn't as much water as I wanted, but I still made the most of it and then left. Let me know what else I should do. So one day I decided to fill my giant hamster ball up with ball pit balls, and I've done this before, but this time I'm going to do it with a lot more balls. I took all the balls from this dome, got in the ball, and here it was, all filled up. It was crazy. I rolled around in it, then rolled it outside, fell down, and here was the view. Then my friend Brendan tried to throw stuff at me and roll me over. Then I decided to test if I could ride this electric scooter in, and I got in with it, but I couldn't make enough momentum for the scooter to go. So I just got in with this hoverboard instead, rolled around, did a lot of spinning stuff, and then I fell again, and went outside. Let me know what else I should try. So one day someone commented telling me to take my giant 580-pound rubber band ball back to the pawn shop like old days, but it's too big, so I'm going to take all this random stuff in this little rubber band ball bag.
What happened to it? Did you put it in water?
And I told him it was a different ball, then showed him a picture of the big one.
Gosh, how big is that now?
I said 580, and then he said I should just put it on eBay. And then I moved on and asked him what he'd give me for this thing.
About $50 in rubber bands, $30.
And I couldn't sell it for that, so I had to move on to this ball.
Super high. Wow, yeah, that's cool. Did you get this at like Chuck E. Cheese?
And then I told him the price.
$16. I paid $8 for it, so I wanted to double my money.
Oh,
Yeah, we didn't end up making a deal on the ball either, so I moved on to this tiny rubber band gun. And I threw him a high ball number.
$200.
He gave me a weird look, so then I just moved on to the last item.
Magic, basically.
I said it was super rare water repellent spray, and I wanted a lot of money for it, but he didn't budge, so then he tried to sell me some stuff, including these cool shades. So one day I decided to see if I could make foam board into a boat that would float me down the creek. This is going to be my first part to a series where I test if random objects or materials will make a boat. I had the boat made, and then I took it down to the creek, put it in the water, and got in. And at first, I didn't think it was going very well. Then I put a hole in it and had to move it to deeper water. So then I tested it again and completely ruined the boat. Look at it. So then I ran off sad, but comment any other boat ideas you want me to make. So it's rubber band ball part 62, and I wanted to try something a little bit different this time. I took about 5 pounds of bands and looped them all together like this with the help of my friend, and we had this long strand that we tried to wrap around the ball, but it was kind of hard, so I rolled it, and that was still pretty hard, and the bands kept falling off, but eventually we got it. But we wanted to test if the same amount of bands was better just placing the normal way, and after we placed that pile, we realized it was. So we got out 3 more bags and placed the entire pile. And these videos always take so long to make, so leave a like if you actually want me to keep going and adding on to this ball. It's just huge now. Just look at it again next to a basketball. And then we put it on the scale and weighed it in at 555 pounds. So again, like if I should keep going. One day I took an air mattress and a bunch of cardboard and decided to make a cardboard air mattress type boat. And my goal was to make it to where you couldn't see any of the air mattress, so it just looked like a complete cardboard boat. I got it completely finished and it looked pretty cool. I took it out to the lake, then I jumped on and paddled my way out. And it was working. I was smooth sailing, then I got blown into the trees, but eventually pushed my way out and made my way around the dock thinking I was going to dock it, but ended up just going all the way around and then headed for these rocks, where I parked the boat for a little while, got off, and then kept going. And I went all the way around this little peninsula and went to shore. Let me know what else I should make. So one day I ordered this new hamster ball that I thought would be better to run on water with than my old hamster ball, but it was kind of too short, but I dealt with it and made my way down to the lake to test it out. I got exhausted in the way, but I eventually made it there, and I normally put my hamster balls in creeks where there's a current, and I didn't realize you needed a current or else you just stay in the same spot, so I couldn't make it to the dock. But it was still pretty cool inside, and I tried to spin as much as possible to get some more movement, but after a long while of spinning and doing a bunch of flips, I was making no progress. So I just parked it in the shore, got out, and then started skipping rocks sad. Let me know what else you should do. So one day someone commented and told me to make a boat out of plastic containers, so I made one out of these plastic bottles. I taped this seat on like this, and it was ready to float down the creek. I got on and I took off, and it was kind of hard to balance, and then I fell. But I got back up and continued on down the creek. The boat was kind of unstable, but I continued on as far as I could go. And when I made it to the big current, I was unbalanced and fell off. And then I lost track of the boat. It was floating down the creek, so I chased after it and hopped on. And then fell again. And also chased the oar down and finally headed back. Comment what else I should make a boat out of. So one day I got a bunch of bubble wrap and ramen noodles to make 2 separate boats for my Will It Boat series. I started with the bubble wrap and taped these 3 things together with a little bit of cardboard and went off on the creek. It was hard to balance on, but it floated at first. And I floated for a while until eventually water started to seep in and I had to get off and drag it to shore. Then I threw a rock and the next day got started on this ramen noodle boat. And the plan was to keep all the ramen in the boxes because I didn't want any of the noodles to get in the water. But I finished the boat and took it out to the creek and it floated pretty decently, but when I got on it, it started to sink. And it stayed afloat, but not with me. Maybe a squirrel. So one day I decided to turn this warehouse into a cool video spot. Well, first I had to clean the place up, so I started by power washing the entire warehouse. And I actually power washed a few more times off camera, but this is the one I filmed the entire thing of. I washed the entire floor and then put some of this acid down, scraped some of this stuff up, and it looked like this. Then it was time to paint. Bam. It looked really good painted and was almost done, but I got this beanbag, this hoop, this trampoline that I did a flip on, and then I shot the hoop, did a dunk thing, and there's also this loft thing, but comment any video ideas you have for me. So I'm now to rubber band ball part 63, and we built this Lego tower to knock it over with the rubber band ball. It completely knocked it over, and then I weighed the ball in at 555 pounds, and then we got busy placing more bands to make it even heavier. I had a whole box dumped out, and my friend Brendan helped me place all these bands. And to make it go faster, we tried to do 2 and 3 bands at a time. And these are like the max custom length bands I can find, so I don't know what I'm going to do after this, but we were done. And the ball is now at an unreal level of massiveness. It about crushed this fort, then almost hit Brendan, and we weighed it in at 580 pounds, so like if you want me to keep on going. This is rubber band ball part 64, and it can barely fit through a doorway, and here it is next to a tire. I rolled it to the other end of the warehouse, and then decided to crush a bunch of poppers with it. Here it goes. And after that, I rolled it onto the scale, breaking this little wood ramp and weighing it in at 585 pounds. And it was now time to get the ball over 600 pounds, so I dumped out a bunch more bands, and then look at this other angle. The ball is huge, and the camera just doesn't do it justice how big it is. And my friend helped me place bands for so long, until eventually the pile was out. And the ball was done. I rolled it over the beanbag and then used it as like a giant exercise ball that's just huge and weighs like 600 pounds. I crushed this ball pit ball and then pushed it with the hoverboard onto the scale and weighed it at 605 pounds. So like if I should keep on going. One day I decided to hang a giant hamster ball from the ceiling of the warehouse and make it a swing with me in it. And also make an actual swing. But first I wanted to play with the ball. I shot a hoop, then I bounced on it like this, and then ran and jumped and almost fell. Then did a flip and another flip. And remember, don't try anything you see in this video at home, but first I wanted to make the swing. I tied it to the ceiling and it worked pretty well. We had a decent swing. And next was the hamster ball that I also tied to the ceiling and then hung on to make sure it would hold my weight. I got in, let myself get aired up, and when we removed the beanbag, I was hitting the floor. So I had to tie the hamster ball up even higher and then get in again. And this time we removed the table and it worked. I was floating. So I got a push and I was swinging in the hamster ball. It was amazing. I couldn't believe it even worked. I spun around for quite a while, then got a bigger push and did this, and then decided to flip over and do this. But yeah, it was a pretty neat experience, and when I got out, I almost got stuck and then fell. So one day I saw this video on TikTok of this guy jumping up and down in this pool and making all these waves and then collapsing like this. So I wanted to test it out and see if it would work with me. So I drug a pool out and filled it up. So then I took out a floaty, aired it all the way up, and got in and tried to repeat exactly what the guy did, jumping up and down, but I didn't see much progress. And there was no waves that made me crash, so then I just made this little whirlpool. After that, I tried again to do the splash thing, didn't work, so I swam around, did a little flip, and then got in the hamster ball. I flipped around in that and then tried the wave thing with it, and it wasn't working very well, so I just did another flip and then tried the wave thing again. And even again, but they all failed, so comment any other ideas you have. So the other day I made this giant rubber band trampoline and people wanted me to make it even bigger and add a lot more bands. So I spent another hour or so adding even more bands until it looked like it was about to bend in. It could support my weight, but I wanted to test its bounciness first with this can that eventually exploded. And next with this basketball that didn't bounce super high, so I got out this watermelon and it just went right through it. So I got out this tire that completely broke the entire trampoline and bent the metal clear like in half almost, as you can see right here. So I just threw it in the pool.